Now we want to head back down to our Beacon Hill studio. It's time to check in with VB and the heavy hitters.
No question about the whereabouts of Cosmo Macero from O'Neill & Associates. Peter Cadges of the Boston Phoenix. Boys have been given a homework assignment, and you're not too pleased about it. We'll get to that in a second. First things first. Hillary and Barack going at it today at a big primary. It's all on the line today, Cosmo.
If I hear do or die one more time, I think I'm going to die. There is a lot at stake, but there's always been a lot at stake in this race. And like I've said for a while now, this is going all the way to the end. And,
what is the end?
That's a good question.
I'm waiting for Guam.
I'd like to see.
Guam's in.
Guam's in. The
7-vote difference there.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing some leadership here, actually, from Howard Dean. He ought to step up and create some kind of a process so this doesn't wind up being a bloody convention fight that really damages his party going into the general election. Some kind of process in which the superdelegates declare, and this has been said, I'm not the first one, there was a great column a couple of weeks ago by Scott Lehigh in the Globe, in which the superdelegates declare their allegiance sometime in June or early July. I think that needs to happen. Can Hillary be mathematically eliminated today? I guess so. Does that really mean much? I don't think so.
Well,
I think she's in this all the way to the end. I think Barack is actually in trouble right now,
If Barack wins both, it's all over. If Hillary wins both, now people are going to say, that's it, she's got the momentum, she's coming on. If it's a split, Peter, aren't we tomorrow right where we were last Wednesday and the Wednesday before that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see more of the same with the predictable happening. Obama winning South Carolina, Hillary, North Carolina. Hillary winning the other race. Look, if Hillary wins both, I still, that's very bad news for Obama. Bad and perhaps even worse news for the Democratic Party. I don't think it's possible for Obama to win both. That just doesn't seem to be in the cards. I don't think there's any way we can avoid the long and bloody fight. And I, in some ways, wonder why should we? Listen, I'm no fan of the Republican Party, but the Democrats have to sort it out. And if it's going to be long and bloody, it's going to be long and bloody.
Speaking of bloody and perhaps long, let's talk about the building behind us for a second and what went on the House floor. Representative Jennifer Callahan on Thursday night threatened by another member of the House, we don't know who yet, we've heard some names, who said, quote, "I could make things difficult for you. I could really hurt you." She tells the leadership and then goes to the press with this, and now we're going to have an investigation headed up by Sal, presumably, as to what happened here. A, is this a big deal, Cosmo? And B, what did happen here?
Well, I mean, it's hardly chivalrous. It's hardly cordial and polite. I don't think it's highly unusual, however, that elbows get sharpened and thrown on the House floor or in the chamber somewhere during a budget debate and during a not entirely healthy process of some sort of adjunct leadership fight that's happening also. So I'm not entirely surprised, but it's pretty unpleasant. And this representative took offense, and I think she took some somewhat unusual action to call him out on it. And I think it's pretty interesting.
My understanding is that this was a political threat, not a physical threat. If it's a physical
threat. The
quote
was, "I could hurt you." Now, I guess that could be interpreted a couple of ways, but presumably it would mean politically, I would think.
I think so. I wonder how many people in the public, which way they take it. I guess this suggests there's new rules on Beacon Hill. I mean, the place is so kooky and screwy anyway that new rules aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's interesting. This comes at a good time for the Speaker.
Yeah.
The Speaker is under assault, under attack from many quarters. He gets to appear decisive. He gets to step in, do the right thing, whatever the right thing is. We'll see what happens. I think it's a mountain out of a molehill.
Did she
myself.
overreact to this, Cosmo, by going to the press? What happens on the floor should stay on the floor, or did she do the right thing bringing this out?
It depends on her perception of the threat. I agree with Peter. I don't think it's a physical threat, a political one, but again, nonetheless, not a pleasant situation. I think Peter's right too. It hasn't been the Speaker's preference or style to talk a lot about a lot of things. this is probably something that maybe he wants to talk about.
Haven't we learned the lesson yet? When you drop a "Do you know who I am?" it's never good. And isn't this a political version of "Do you know who I am"? So whoever said it, if they get punished as a result, is anybody going to cry for this guy?
Listen, it's bad news for Beacon Hill, but Beacon Hill already has 2 black eyes. You know, I don't think when this is over, life is going to be any different in Beacon Hill or any different in Massachusetts.
And when you muscle someone in that situation, that's one thing. When you get caught doing it, nobody wants that to happen, and it looks like that's happened.
All right, quickly. We got a minute, gentlemen. I gave you a homework assignment. Celts Cavs, game 1 tonight. Celtics survive, and now they get the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you had to say something nice about Cleveland, what would you say, Cosmo?
Well, I called in reinforcements and asked a colleague of mine who's from Cleveland. The best she could come up with was a really nice series of parks. Gee, nobody's got one of those. And some pierogi joint that Bill Clinton likes, so...
Nobody's got those, Webster.
Listen,
that's the best I could do.
Cleveland's just a wonderful cultural capital. It has a river that once spontaneously burst into flame. Let's not forget their mayor, Ralph Perk, a crazy and zany guy. He lit his hair on fire one time. I mean, I think Cleveland's just a wonderful place.
To paraphrase Oil Can Boyd, what do you expect from a city that built a ballpark on the ocean, right?
Whenever an Oil Can Boyd reference is worked in, Cosmo, you've had a good day. Cosmo Macero of O'Neill Associates, Peter Cadges of the Boston Phoenix. They are the heavy hitters. We'll take a timeout when we come back.